far away to make it back to you, 'cause I know you're worthy. There's enough love left for the worst and best. And with every breath, I know you're blessed, 'cause there's enough for you. I am overwhelmed and feel that I'm too weak to lift my head out of my hands, or to think I'd find anyone else who understands. And there's enough love left for my worst and best. And with for the worst and best. Now with every breath, I know I'm blessed, 'cause there's enough for you. Enough for you, enough for me. Standing taller on your knees, you were worthy. Whoa, enough for them, enough for us. When you feel like giving up, you were worthy. Whoa, enough for you, enough for me. Standing taller on your knees, you were worthy. Oh, love. Enough for them, enough for us. When you find it's hard to trust, you are worthy. Whoa, love, you are worthy. Oh, love, I am worthy. Oh, love.
Yes, please come off of mute for one moment just to give Austin Willacy some love and appreciation.
Oh. Wonderful. Thank you.
That was awesome.
Our choir director right there.
Thank you.
That's right, the Thrive Choir co-director rocking it and opening us up with such powerful love music, and he's going to be bringing it, closing us at the end of our time together. So thank you again, Austin, for grounding us in song. And welcome to everyone to this beautiful, potent gathering where we will explore a politics of love and belonging. We are coming together in the fullness of this blue moon with, wow, y'all. I mean, the lineup today is incredible. We have acclaimed author and political activist Marianne Williamson. We have celebrated songwriter and vocalist Jen Johns, and again, beloved musician and Thrive Choir co-director Austin Willacy, and all of y'all. So this is going to be a rich time for us to really think about, in this time of profound division, compounding crises, and what does it look like? What does it feel like to build together a politics of love and belonging? So we will have some time at the end of Marianne's talk for some Q&A, but we want to invite you to use the chat to comment, ask questions there. Hopefully we will have time for that. We are going to be adding on an additional optional half an hour for folks to break out into groups and just process and speak what's on our hearts, our minds, in our bodies in the wake of our time together. So if you have the time and you want to stay with us and continue building community and just talk about what we heard and what we experienced together, that will be available for you. But please keep yourself on mute as we have 71 people and counting who are with us today. And I just want to ground us as we begin to talk about politics of love and belonging by grounding us in what we love. And you have already begun to write some of that into the chat, but taking a moment to think of something that you love in this world, that you love about being alive, and let yourself feel it. Let that ground you and ground us in this conversation, in this inquiry, in this time of profound uncertainty, in feeling our love move through us, sensing into the force of love and the power of our collective love as a force of change, not only to act on behalf of what we love, but to act from love, to act as love. And I want to ground us as well by acknowledging the land where we are. Thrive East Bay is located in unceded Huichin territory of the Chochenyo Ohlone people. And we know that people are calling in from all over the country. So wherever you are located, take a moment to extend your acknowledgement and your gratitude to the Indigenous peoples who have cultivated and stewarded the land where you reside for generations, who have developed cultural ways and song and story that have been shaped by the land and that provide guidance in how to live in right relationship with place and all the beings where we are, to live in reciprocity and interdependence. We know that acknowledgement is one small step toward repair, but we do this because in our work to transform our world, we need to reckon with where we've come from. We need to acknowledge the historical theft of land and the harm of the white settler colonial project, and to continue supporting the ongoing struggle and work and self-determination of Indigenous peoples to reclaim their land and cultural ways and sacred sites. We're in a time of deep reckoning and repair and reimagination of what it means to be in right relationship, not only with land, but with this history of genocide and slavery and theft and the ongoing systems of domination and violence that we are being called upon to transform. So if you're interested in learning more about the native lands where you are, Joshua just dropped in a link in the chat, nativeland.ca. And if you like to make a voluntary Shumi Land Tax contribution, if you live in Huichin territory, if you live on Ohlone land, you can begin to pay reparations to the Sogorea Land Trust, and that link is also in the chat. We also want to ground ourselves and start today by honoring our elders, honoring the elders on this call and the elders in our lives. We want to honor the children and the future generations that will be impacted by our work, by our actions and inaction, and by this election that we are approaching. And as many people from different cultures right now are gathering and acknowledging their ancestors in this time as Dia de los Muertos approaches, and we want to honor the ancestors of each one of you that are on this call. and all of their struggles and dreams and resilience that have brought us to be here together today. We want to recognize and honor the 231,000 Americans who have lost their lives this year to COVID-19 and the 1.2 million people who have died to this disease around the world, and send our love and care and condolences to their families. We want to remember and honor the lives of 164 Black people who have been killed by police in this country this year alone, including George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and most recently, Walter Wallace Jr., and extend our love and care to their families, and for all of us to remember and honor the Black lives who have been lost to racist violence in this country through the centuries. We extend our love, our sorrow, and our commitment to create a world in which Black lives not only matter, but are valued and cherished. So we are in a reckoning on every front, from a raging global pandemic to historical and ongoing racist violence and injustice, to climate destabilization and chaos. And we are on the precipice of this election in 2020, in which our very democracy and the future of our country is at stake. So we got a lot going on. And Marianne, I want to bring a quote from Marianne to ground us as we hold the context that we're gathered in. She says, "We have to take full responsibility for the thoughts and actions that led us here. Then and only then will we be on the path to recovery. America is down on its knees, but that's not the bad news. It's the good news. That's ultimately not where things end, but where things begin again. It's where we can find grace and humility and forgiveness and love. The pain at this moment is the pain of a nation that is laboring toward its own rebirth." And so we are in that labor together, my friends, and so glad to be here with you. My name is Aria Shell. I will be co-hosting our event today, along with our beloved Thrive leader and elder, Manuel Herrera. I'm going to hand it to you, Manuel, to introduce yourself and say a few words about the Thrive East Bay community.
I'm so proud to be a part of this gathering today. My name is Manuel, first initial J Manuel Herrera, as I'm known in my public life as a Silicon Valley elected official. I'm a member of Thrive East Bay and part of its leadership team. Thrive is a welcoming space for diverse people who are seeking meaning and connection in this rapidly changing world. We are informed by modern science and ancient wisdom. Our culture is both secular and spiritual, infused with a deep sense of purpose and interconnectedness, inspired by the arts, and focused on social change. 4 core principles guide our community. Number 1, thriving lives. We support each other in overcoming personal challenges and injustice and creating healthy lives filled with purpose, joy, and expression. Number 2, love in action. We let love guide us toward compassion, gratitude, empathy, and community among diverse groups of people. Number 3, shared learning and practice. We seek to deepen our understanding of the world through conversation and critical inquiry, and to grow together through transformative practices and action. And number 4, systemic change. We unite to build equitable systems where we can flourish as individuals, as communities, and as a planet. So proud to be a member of Thrive East Bay. Back to you, Aria.
Thank you, Manuel, and welcome again to everyone. We welcome all of you here. And it is my honor and great pleasure to introduce one of my favorite humans on the planet and one of Thrive's absolute favorite guest artists and speakers, who's, I think this is the 3rd time we've been blessed with Jennifer's presence. And Jennifer is fire. Jennifer is the embodiment of fierce truth and light and love and vulnerability and creativity and power. And we're lucky to have Jen with us today during this blue moon when the veils are thin, because when Jen sings, she channels the ancestors through her. And so we will be in good company, and I promise you will be deeply moved by the power of Jennifer's music. Jen creates sounds and experiences that will stir your soul, inspire your mind, and move your body. She is a powerhouse vocalist, songwriter, and producer who vacillates between soul, hip hop, Afrobeat, dancehall, rock, reggae, deep house, and more. While in most circles, Jennifer is best known as a musician and activist, she is also very multi-talented and spends a lot of creative energy on performance installations and visual art. Miss Johns has taken her brand of Afro-diasporic world music all over the globe and has shared lineups with some of the best in the business, including the likes of Miss Lauryn Hill, the Black Eyed Peas, Mos Def, Ziggy Marley, Gil Scott-Heron, Les Nubian, De La Soul, and Common, along with thought leaders like Van Jones, Dr. Michael Beckwith, Phaedra Ellis Lampkins, and now Marianne Williamson. So Jen began a journey in February of 2016 called the Fun Manifesto, F-U-N, to ask people about their ideas of freedom. And that has continued to evolve and shape Jennifer's work. It ultimately led to the official release of Azania, which is an incredible, incredible album. And her next works are an evolution on this Fun Manifesto. So hopefully we'll hear a little bit more about that. But she says, what I have learned through my art and activism is that both freedom and joy are personal and can be chosen at any time. And plans to remind people that we always have that choice available to us. So Jen, John, such a deep honor. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, it is always such a blessed time when I get to be with you guys. I am unmuted. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, just making sure. Because I was so concerned with the sound, and I'm sure all of you guys have seen this over the last several months of us having to come together and be together in community, I decided to pre-record my performance. You see, I'm prepared, but I just wanted to make sure that the sound was beautiful. This day is so important. It's a day that we come together and remember who and whose we are, that we called in this time, that we asked for this time. We said, all ye shall witness while Babylon fall, and it's right here and it's right now and it's changing. And so what a blessing. And so I'm excited to share this time and this day. I cannot wait for Sister Marianne Williamson to just blow up our whole brain cell situation, as she often does. So I'm just gonna sing a prayer, and then I will let Josh play the video that I just shot a few minutes ago for you guys. So please take a deep breath in. I love you, Lord, and I lift my voice to worship you. Oh, my soul, rejoice and take joy, my Queen, in what you hear. Let me be the sweet, sweet, sweet sound in your Ashe. On you, Josh.
Oh, thrive how I love you all.
thinking about how many times I've had the opportunity to play this song with the Thrive Choir and how much light it brings me each and every time. So I'm hearing y'all in my head right now, just vibing. Yeah. I am the change. I am the new beginning. Beyond the dream, I am the dream reborn. Beyond that little bullet, go further. I am now, I am real, I am yours. And like your breath, your faith, your conscience, a collective voice, this power of one, like you know that you've known forever. You are the one. I am 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 the soul. The pulse of the main street, heart of the ghetto, the soul. More than an audacity to hope and prove we all chose. See, when this road gets rocky and rough, we push on forward. More than one man, I'm all of you. I am the one, I am the one, I am the one. I am the one, I am the one, I am the one. I am the one, I am the one, I am the one. I am the one. Ooh. Yeah, 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 yes. Yeah, 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 yes. We have gone beyond revolution, evolution, the power of one. We have gone beyond revolution, evolution, the power of one. We have gone beyond revolution, evolution, the power of one. We have gone beyond revolution, evolution, the power. It's one. My, the power, yeah, yes. My God, the power is one. Yeah, 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 yes. This power is so big, so strong, it's so life. Ooh, yeah, 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 yes. I must tell you something. When they offer you the opportunity to be mediocre, refuse them. Tell them that you've got things to do in the stars with your hands tangling a brilliant scheme of firelight amidst the bright spangling stars above. Tell them that you are a hero, that you have come to change the world, that you've got songs to sing and ideas to bring to life, and chances are it ain't gonna happen if you too busy standing on the corner holding up the block, looking for another bullet to dodge, trying to be hard. Tell them that you're working with more than money, and it might be difficult for their minds to get a grip on all that you're working with simultaneously, but you tell them that you are the shine burning off the sun, the lilted gold of morning light twirling down the horizon. Say you've got the bright of day in your bones. You've got tomes of answered prayers living up in your limbs like magic to be meted out upon this needed moment. Tell them that you are working with more than money, that you got light and love and power beyond any denomination or dollar bill. Tell them you are the illest of the illest, because you've got ideas that will change the world. Yeah, yes. And then you tell them that you are me and I am you and we are one. And when you're done telling them that, tell them about this love. What is love? Is it not the only thing worth living for in this crazy world? I know we're needing more. My God, it's
love. And it is time, the wretched of the earth, the meek, the cast aside, to know that they are worth more. We are love divine. My God, it's love. The bravest hearts with broken dreams become marked with broken things. Take to the sky, blackbird, and reclaim your light, blackbird. Be set take her to the sky, blackbird, and reclaim your light, blackbird. I'll call me. Yeah, yeah. What is love? What is love? My God, my God. More love, more love. You are the night, and you paint the sky. Be set free. Be set free. Love to my brother Kev Choice for producing this song and this instrumental. I hope wherever you are, you're dancing and moving and filled with this light love energy right now. These are indeed trying times, complicated times, confusing times, but we know for sure that the mind is greater, that the spirit is more dynamic, that it requires us to dream something bigger, for us to know beyond what happens in the physical so that we can make the physical happen. So I know that this love that we're feeling right now is better than anything, and with it we will change the world. I will take to the sky. I will reclaim the night. I'll be set free. Yeah, yes. Take it to the sky and reclaim the night, and I will be set free. I will be. For you are the nights.
Amen.
You guys so much.
Oh. Can y'all just wait, like come off, everybody, come off of mute and just love of Jennifer John.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Incredible. Yes. Our goddess.
Go, baby, go.
I
You
can't wait.
says.
Well, here's the last song. It's called Grace. It was also produced by my brother Kev Choice. And it's forewarning. Dance. Wherever you're at, whatever it is you're doing, even if it's just a shoulder shimmy, we need it. So dance. Okay.
I hope
hope you're dancing. I hope you're dancing. I really, really hope you're dancing wherever you are. I hope you're dancing. I hope that you know that all it takes is a little bit of grace and a whole lot of love. Oh, I hope you're dancing. I hope you're dancing. The lyrics say, we choose grace. Midnight will forever be the right midnight. That's how I midnight will forever be bright again. Midnight will forever be bright again. In this time of wild, uncertain, reckless rage, indignant anger, we stay focused on love. For no weapon formed against you can prosper when you're bright with the essence of the divine, with love as my light to guide my way. Fire in the heart, we glow effortlessly. With my light, we choose grace. Midnight will forever be bright again. We choose grace. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Midnight will forever be bright. In the midnight hour, we choose to love. We choose the night. Choose grace. Blessed are those amongst us who see the glory in the bleak, know how to dream a new world order that's meant for all of we. Today, simple elegance, life, love, and liberty, of happiness for all humanity. We choose grace. We choose grace. Midnight will forever be bright again. We choose grace. Yeah, yeah. Midnight will forever be bright. Yeah, yeah, yeah. In the dark, I'm not afraid. So don't you be afraid. Y'all better be dancing, even if it's just a little shoulder shimmy. Oh. Amazing, the elixir of grace, the way it feels moving through your spirit. Knowing that all things are done in divine God time. Move our hearts and move our feet, Asher. I hope you guys are ready to sing with me. It's really simple. Hallelujah. That's right. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Yes. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Oh, you better believe. Hallelujah. When you're on shaky ground, to just stand up and know, you gotta know, that no weapon formed against you can prosper. All things are unfolding, they are unfolding for your good. So just stand in faith and move your feet. Only you know what is yours to do, you must do it. You will be met with the grace of the Lord. Yes, yeah, yeah. Hallelujah. What a blessing it is to share space with you every single time, even under these circumstances. I love you all. I know that this next 4 years, we will be better for what we've experienced. We're moving forward, we're growing up, and I believe in us. So on Tuesday, that's the beginning of the next journey. That's the beginning of the next phase. I hope that the level of passion that we have come to this election with is just the spark, that the passion that comes next is unprecedented and filled with light and love. I know that this truth that we all deserve: food, clothing, shelter, safety, clean air, clean water, access to culturally relevant education, Wi-Fi, and a passport. I know that this truth is attainable in my lifetime. But it starts with us voting and using our voices to be heard. Lift every voice and sing until earth and heaven ring with the harmony, harmonies of liberty. Let all rejoicing arise, 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 listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling seas. Be well.
I'm going to step right in here and introduce Marianne Williamson, shorten the introduction because she has a hard stop. Thank you so much, Marianne, for joining us here, Thrive East Bay. It's amazing to me that we are gathered on the eve of a momentous election with one of the premier voices on the national and world stage. Marianne Williamson, as many of you know, is a best-selling author, political activist, and spiritual thought leader. She did something breathtaking. She announced her candidacy for President of the United States, a Democratic candidate. Folks, you know it's fearsome to run for city council or mayor or county board of supervisors. It's even more fearsome to run for the state legislature or for Congress, but to stand up before the world and run for President of the United States, I was awestruck, and I signed on for her announcement event. And I signed on because I believe in Marianne and her message for the times. But by the time she was finished talking, I literally stood up cheering in front of my computer, and I was like raising my hands, and I immediately went and made the first of several donations. Marianne, your voice is so needed. She was the first to advocate for reparations for slavery. Since the 1990s, she's been advocating for reparations and was the first candidate in the 2020 presidential primary season to make it a pillar of her campaign. And actually, I really came to understand the issue much more after hearing Marianne speak about this from the depths of her being. So a quote from her best-selling book, A Return to Love. The quote is, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure." And this quote is considered an anthem for a contemporary generation of seekers. Marianne, thank you for your fearlessness, for the humility to stand up and be seen in all of your perfection and imperfection. You are carrying something that is so vital.
Thank
We're
you.
waiting to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Manuel. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Aria. Thank you, all of you. It's an honor to be in your space this evening. And everyone who has spoken has already laid down words and concepts that are so important for us tonight and that I want to speak into and expand upon. Aria gave us a great beginning talking about how we're living at a time of reckoning. many of us here have been involved in spiritual principles, understanding how we must try to live our lives from love, how we must atone for our mistakes, how we must try to be better people when we know that we have not been filled with integrity and we have not been living the lives we are on this earth to live. We know that we have to look at our shadows. We know that we need to try to grow, that we need to try to be kinder, and that as we do that, our lives repair. Those concepts are not new. They're not new to anyone who is on this call, and they're not new or unknown to the vast majority of people. But what has happened in this country, oddly enough, is that many of the people who have taken those ideas to heart the most have disconnected from politics. Too many times, people who are on a spiritual journey have thought politics was toxic. Politics was toxic, and so we didn't want anything to do with it. So what you're saying is that sometimes the people who are living from heart disconnected from politics. So if the people who are disconnected from heart leave politics alone, what happens to it? It becomes even more toxic. And the more toxic it became, the more people trying to live lives of love disconnected from it, to the point where even though the vast majority of people want to live good lives, want to live taking care of each other, taking care of our children, being good in the world, became almost a parallel universe to this thing over there called politics. And what happened was politics became a soulless part of our existence. And it is a part of our existence, whether we're looking at it or not. I've been saying to people for so long, every public issue will make it to your private door. You know, I would say to people, good luck with all that green juice. Good luck with all that gluten-free. If they are poisoning the air, if they're poisoning the water, if they're poisoning the food, it's going to affect your life. And so many of the things that we know now are really horrible. They're right in front of us. It's hatred, it's greed, it's brute force, completely untethered to anything that has to do with anything other than this consumptive mentality that has no love or kindness or tenderness for earth or for people. It has become like an assault on our lives, and all of a sudden there's an awakening. And in this awakening, people are realizing that just as people have to try to be better, a nation has to try to be better. Just as people have to live with compassion, a nation should live with compassion. Just as people have to look at our shadows and repair what's broken and look at those dark things in us that must be made right, so does a nation. And all that a politics is our collective behavior. So as Ari is saying, this nation is living through a period of reckoning, just like an individual does, when something takes us to our knees and we realize, wow, man, I have to change my life. Because if you grow enough, you know that it's not really somebody else's fault. What was my part in my own disaster? Ari has mentioned some of those things. Slavery, genocide. But the issue is not just the mistakes in our past, because we want to remember that the mistakes in our past have been answered by other generations. Aria talked about standing in honor of our ancestors tonight, as well as devotion to our descendants.
There is no one in this thing.
Our ancestors were not just slave owners. Our ancestors were also abolitionists. Our ancestors were not only people who institutionally suppressed the rights of women, our ancestors were also women suffragettes. Our ancestors were not only segregationists, our ancestors were also civil rights workers. So what's happening in the expansive, transformative realm of politics today is that we know we have to identify the places where America's wounds, where America's miscreations, where America's fault lines and shadows must be repaired. But as important as it is that we identify those things, we want to identify with the problem solvers in our past. There was slavery, and then there was the abolition of the institution of slavery. Then there was another 100 years of basically domestic terrorism perpetrated on Black people in the American South. And then there was the Civil Rights Movement. Then there was the Civil Rights Act, dismantling segregation. Then there was the Voting Rights Act to guarantee universal voting. However, there was one major gap, major wound of injustice that has still not been healed. And I think that if Martin Luther King had not died in 1968, perhaps it would have been answered sooner. And that, of course, has to do with the economic gap between Blacks and whites that began with slavery and has never totally closed. And of course, in many ways, we've stepped backwards. Mass incarceration means we've stepped backwards. Racial disparity in criminal sentencing means we've stepped backwards. But all of these things are not a sign that we are bad. They are a sign of places where we simply have not addressed the deeper issues of shadow that still must be addressed. Now, it's very important that Aria and that the Thrive East Bay community called us together tonight, because we are 48 hours ahead of an election, a presidential election, which, as much as any presidential election in the history of our country, perfectly embodies two visions of America. Those two competing visions of America have been with us since our founding. In 1776, our Declaration of Independence was signed by 56 men. And with the signing of the Declaration, they laid claim, they imbued in the founding documents of a nation the most aspirational and transcendent principles that had ever been the core of a nation, that all men are created equal, that aristocracy could be overthrown, that God gave all men inalienable rights of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, which is the same thing as saying everyone should be able to thrive. The very fact that those principles were laid down was radical. It was a radical concept in 1776, and it is a radical concept today. However, 41 of the men who signed that document were themselves slave owners. So that dichotomy has always been with us. That bipolar nature of the American mind has always been with us. We have always been both. In every generation, the struggle has been played out between those whose hearts were ablaze with the idea of what this country can be, the very concept that everybody should have a chance to thrive because everybody was created equal by God, and that we should form a society to the best of our ability where everybody has the opportunity to thrive. In every generation, people have struggled for the embodiment and the manifestation and the expansion of that ideal. People have struggled for it, sacrificed for it, and in some cases have died. But there has also been in every generation those forces whose basic response to the very idea was, no, we will not be doing that. And often, and this is as true, this struggle and its embodiment is as true today as is any other generation in our history, that those who would say no to that are armed, and they have money, and they have technology, and they have political power, and they are not unwilling to use violence to perpetrate their vision. But tonight, we remind ourselves, other generations have pushed them back. We faced abolition, we faced slavery with abolition, and we faced the institutionalized suppression of women with women's suffrage, and we faced segregation with the civil rights movement. And today, we face the latest iteration of this struggle. People who are looking at the possibilities, the extraordinary, right now, multiculturalism and religious plurality and multi-ethnicity is not just an idea. It's not just a concept. It's an explosion of possibility. Some of us look at that and go, oh my God, this could be so amazing 50 years from now. This person's from that part of the world, and this person's from that part of the world. And this person is this age, and this person is that age, and this person is brown, and this person is black, and this person is white, and this person is Jewish, and this person is Christian, and this person is Hindu, and this person is Buddhist, and this person is Muslim, and this person sees the world through a secular lens. And some of us look at that and go, wow, the possibilities for brilliance, the possibilities for genius, and everybody getting together and everybody sharing, this is my art, and this is my art, and this is my genius, and this is my talent. Some of us look at that and go, wow, you let this unfold in the 21st century, and the potential and the possibilities for genius is unlike anything anyone on the earth has seen. And then there are some people who do not find that exciting. They find it terrifying. They find it annihilating, because to them, their idea of the identity of America has to do with one particular color, one particular religion, and more often than not, only one sex. Whites will be in charge, thank you. Christians will be in charge, thank you. And men will be in charge. And just like where the Pacific meets the Atlantic, man, those are some violent waters. And right now, not just theoretically, not just philosophically, we are living at a great moment of decision. But just as it has so often been said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, the human race is moving in the direction of God's creation. God created all the colors. All the religions are an expression of the mind of God. God created all the cultures. God created all the ethnicities. The magnificence of the multi-nature, the diversification of human genius, that's the gift of creation. You don't decide between the peony in the garden or the rose or the bird of paradise. They are all there, and they are not in competition with each other. Now, the old world is falling apart and it's going away. And why is that? When you and I were children, we learned about how evolution worked. We learned about the fact that if a species is moving in a direction that is maladaptive for its survival, that it will either go extinct or it will evolve. And right now we're at a point where the human race is behaving collectively in ways that are maladaptive for our survival. We are systematically attacking our own habitat, the earth itself, and we are disunited and fighting each other and spending our resources more on ways to kill each other than on ways to heal and love each other. This is maladaptive for the survival of our species. We will evolve, or we will continue on a path of global catastrophe, which could bring us to nothing short of the destruction of the human race. We can no longer move in the way we've been moving. It's not just that we can open up to love in all the ways that Jennifer sang about. It is that is our only survivable option. Sometimes when people say to me, oh, Marianne, you think that love rather than economics, you think that humanitarian values rather than short-term corporate economics should guide human civilization. You're so naive, Marianne. You know what I say to that? Anybody who thinks we will survive on this planet for another 100 years if we don't at least try and still survive, they're naive. Now, I really understand why it's so much easier to keep this conversation over on the side and to not get into politics. Oh, nobody understands it better than I do, because they mock you and they mischaracterize you and they laugh at you. And you know what I've learned? Let them mock, let them mischaracterize, let them laugh. 'Twas always thus. We have a mission. And I honestly believe that there are far more people on this planet and in this country who love than who hate. But those who hate with conviction. And if you have 10 people hating with conviction and 100 people loving, but they're disconnected, they're staying over on the sidelines, they're not really laying it down where it might make a difference in our collective experience, then hate will have its day, and hate has had its day with us. But you know what? The human body has an immune system. The human body can take a lot of assault and a lot of injury, and the immune system kicks in. And as long as the immune system is healthy, all of those immune cells go out there and they take care of the assault and they take care of the injury. And civilization has an immune cell too. And Aria is an immune cell, and Manuel is an immune cell, and Jennifer is an immune cell, and I'm an immune cell, and everybody watching is an immune cell. Billions and billions of immune cells all over this world, and millions of immune cells all over this country. Individual immune cells, everybody who has stood in line to vote, everybody who's going to be voting on Tuesday, everybody who is voting their heart, everybody who is saying no to hate, everybody who is saying no to a hateful, racist, white supremacist future for America, everybody who says no to a constricted identity for America, which does not include for the multitudinous nature of the possibilities and the genius that is among us. Everybody who is saying, I stand for the fact that there is infinite genius in my child, and there is infinite genius in the brain of every child. And therefore, when we know that there are millions of American children who go to school every single day, in schools that do not even have the supplies with which to teach that child to read. And if that child cannot learn to read by the age of 8, then the chances of that child ever graduating from high school is actually less than the idea of that child one day being incarcerated, which means we let all that genius fall away, not only from the life of that child and the possibilities of that child, but from the life and the possibilities of America. Each and every one of us who says, no, this is beyond not pretty. This is wrong. This is beyond not wonderful. No, this is wrong. This is unjust. This is wrong. This is unjust. This is evil. And you see, that's what the religious and spiritual communities have. Sometimes people think that those of us who see the world in religious or spiritual terms are kind of naive. We don't really know how the world works. Well, let me tell you something. Evil comes from a realization of all the religious communities and traditions. There was the crucifixion before there was the resurrection, remember? There was the enslavement of the Israelites by Pharaoh before there was the journey of the Israelites to the promised land. So those of us, no matter what our religious or spiritual background, no, we understand that there is a counterforce to love. We've experienced it in our lives and we've seen it in the world. But what the spiritual and the religious understanding gives you is, yeah, but that crucifixion ultimately turns into resurrection, and that enslavement by the Pharaoh turns into the entrance to the promised land. And that symbolic 3 days between the crucifixion and the resurrection, that symbolic 40 years between the enslavement of the Israelites and their entrance into the promised land, that is a message from God himself. You're going to get there. That darkness will turn to light, and that water will turn to wine, and that injustice will turn to justice, and that cruelty will turn to kindness, and that war will turn to kindness, and that violence will turn to peace. But how long will it take? That's up to us. Whether it's 3 years or 300 years or 3,000 years is up to us. And that is where we stand right now. This country is deciding, as it has had to decide before, where you're going to go. You go in the direction of slavery, you're going to go in the direction of the abolition of slavery. You're going to go in the direction of the institutionalized oppression of women, or you're going to give women the right to vote. Which is it going to be? You're going to go in the direction of segregation, you're going to go in the direction of civil rights. Which is it going to be? And now you and I. You're going to go in the direction of complete corporate dominance, where short-term corporate profits are given precedence by a government that is held hostage because of corporate money and the money that it wields on our government, turning our government into little more than a handmaiden, a system of legalized bribery, doing the bidding of health insurance companies, big pharmaceutical companies, and gun manufacturers, and food companies, and chemical companies, and big oil and defense contractors and banks and tech companies and big telecom. You can let them run your life. You can let them repeal the ban on pesticides that we know harm a developing child's brain. You can let American foreign policy be run by militarism and increase militarism so that defense contractors can make more money rather than care for children, not just in your own neighborhoods, but in places like Yemen and the Middle East. Which is it going to be? Which is it going to be? Other generations have stood and they've had that question in front of them. And our ancestors always ultimately chose justice. And now it's our turn. There was a generation that said to the landed gentry aristocracy in England, out. And now there's a new aristocracy. It's a corporate aristocracy. And they have too much power. They don't pay enough taxes. Regulations have been repealed. They're given subsidies while we have children who are hungry in this country. And what's happening right now, literally right now, not theoretically right now, literally as we speak, you and I are standing at a crossroads. And the entire political establishment, none of it's a container for the kind of ecstatic, Shakti-filled love of possibility that we're talking about tonight. Well, one of them's a hell of a lot better. We are in the middle of this decision-making right now, just like our ancestors have been. So when Aria said tonight, let us honor our ancestors, you know, one of the things that Einstein said time and space are just illusions of consciousness. There really is no time except in your minds. So when I think of the abolitionists right now, I think of a compression of time. They're here right now. When I think of the women's suffragettes, I think of them as here right now. When I think of those who stood up to segregation and ultimately dismantled it, Martin Luther King and others, I think of them as here right now. When I think of my great-great-grandchildren, I think of them as here right now. We know all this. I haven't said anything tonight that everybody here doesn't already know. But the era of data collection is over. This isn't any longer about collecting data. It's about asking ourselves, do you have the courage? You have the courage, because that's what it took the other generations to make it happen. You have all the information you need. Do you have the willingness? Because that's what it took other generations to say, let's do this. Do you have the readiness? And I think we do. I look at someone like Manuel, someone I've known for years. We've all been at this stuff for decades. And this is the moment. Rehearsal is over. And it's not an accident. I don't think that what the Thrive community is doing tonight, bringing people together to stand in a field of possibility and love and devotion. While people in this country, there are people preparing their AK-47s tonight. There are people who have violence in their mind tonight. There are people planning some things that America cannot be proud of tonight. It was always thus. But we're gathered here tonight, joining our hearts. We're here together tonight singing hallelujah. We're here together tonight when Jennifer sang the song, the line, may no weapon formed against us stand. May no weapon formed against our democracy stand. So in this moment, knowing that politics doesn't mean of the government, it means of the people. We're joined together tonight. And as we take a deep breath and close our eyes, we place the trajectory of American history in the hands of whatever higher power we believe in or look to. And we have seen miracles in this country. We have seen openings and breakthroughs and possibilities. And we honor our ancestors who have invoked them and brought them about. And we pray that we too will be courageous. We pray that we too will be ready. We pray that we too will be willing. We pray for safety and blessing and protection upon this election and upon the path forward for this country and for the world. And each of us pray that the hand of God be upon us, that we might be the people that God would have us be, that we might do what God would have us do, to invoke the lights, to bring forth the peace, and to give birth to the future that all of our hearts most want to see. And so it is. Together, we all say, Amen.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
You and
Yes.
Thank you so much. So beautiful.
Very beautiful. So beautiful.
Amen, Marianne.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Aria,
Wonderful.
Marianne has another engagement and a hard stop in 5 minutes. So
Got it.
that's all we have.
I can do 10, Manuel, I'm fine. You had some questions you want to do?
All right.
Well, I'm going to invite folks, if you have questions, to put them in the chat. And one, I just want to say thank you, Marianne, for your voice, for your truth telling, the way that you brought love and reparations to the center of our national conversation, to make it a part of your platform, the courage and the willingness that it took for you to take that stand and to move us toward the arc of justice in the ways that you have, to remind us of our lineage, that we bring the power of the suffragettes and the abolitionists into our work, and to remind us of the power of our multiplicity and our diversity if we unleash all of our brilliance. And I'm wondering if you could paint for us a little bit more concretely the politics of love, when you center love in your campaign, in the ways that you are wanting to weave that into the political realm. Can you describe a little bit more for us? What does that look like from the local to the national? What does that look like in policy? What does it look like in how we work together?
A politics of fear is where racism and bigotry and anti-Semitism and homophobia and xenophobia and Islamophobia and a crass economic calculation that puts short-term profit for huge multinational corporations before concern and care for people and planet. When that guides public policy, that's a politics of fear. A politics of love is where a dedication to liberty and a dedication to equality, a dedication to compassion, a dedication to mercy guides public policy. When I mentioned before that there are millions of American children who go to school in classrooms where they don't even have adequate school supplies to teach a child to read. And if a child cannot learn to read by the age of 8, then the chances of high school graduation are drastically decreased and the chances of incarceration are increased. Now, why is that? Because the primary source of funding for American public schools is property taxes. So a child who is born into an advantaged neighborhood stands a very good chance of having a very high quality public education in America. But in many, many states, a child that is born into a less financially advantaged neighborhood, where their parents' home does not represent a high property tax value, that child gets a much less quality education. Now, the idea here is that God created those children, a poor child, if we're dedicated to all men are created equal, then that would mean the poor child deserves as much opportunity as the rich child. There's public policy determining these things. So if we, a politics of love, would, among other things, take the vast resources of our country and place them, front-ending them into the life of a child, because we now know how much happens in the brain of a child before the age of 8. It is now public policy. We have 53 cents of every dollar in this country goes to military spending. That's public policy. That is because of all the money that is made by waging war, or at least, if not by waging war, then at least by building the mechanisms of war. That's what defense contractors, whether it has to do with Boeing or Northrop Grumman or Raytheon. Now, should we have a strong military? We should have I believe, the military that our military leaders say they need in order to secure our safety. I don't think anyone denies that. But we spend hundreds of billions of dollars above and beyond that to create mechanisms of war that do not have to do with what the military say they need, but with what the defense contractors want. That's just to make money. Now, there are 4 factors which, when present, indicate statistically that there will be greater incidence of peace. This is true in an American corner of a city or in another corner of the world. When there is a greater economic opportunity for women, greater educational opportunity for children, reduced violence against women, and an amelioration of unnecessary human despair. When those 4 factors are present, there's a higher incidence of peace and a lower incidence of conflict. So we should be spending money on ways to create peace. But to give you an example, our military budget is $760 billion a year. Our State Department budget is $40 billion a year. These are political policies. This is why we talk about it as political terms. And no amount of private charity can compensate for a basic lack of social justice. So when you have corporations that make money on war, but no corporations making money on peace, and those corporations' money is what over influences our politicians making these policy decisions, this is what happens when the people are disconnected from what's going on. So it's time for the people to step in. So whether it has to do with children who are hungry, people who do not have health insurance, why is it that we're the only advanced democracy where we don't have universal health care? It's all about the money. It's all about the health insurance companies and the big pharmaceutical companies and their over influence on the system. This is why we must get the money out of politics. So when you ask me what is the politics of love, it's a politics in which public policy is guided not by a bottom line of what increases short-term profit for huge multinational corporations, but rather by what helps people thrive. If people have a good education, if people have health care, if people aren't burdened by these college loans, they thrive, they're happy. And guess what? This is the best thing you can do for your economy. How many of these kids, you have $1.5 trillion college loan debt? You know, Aria, how many of those kids who are young people who are carrying those college loan debts would like nothing better than to get in the game? But you can't be a capitalist if you don't have any capital. They can't let them in the game. They'd love nothing more than to have $2,500 so they could start their own website, business, whatever. So these are all policies. That's why when you say remove the college loan debt, give people universal health care so that they don't even have to worry about these things. Give people free tuition at colleges, state colleges and universities. All it means is that people get these shackles. You know, the shackles that bind people are not always physical shackles, but so many millions of Americans live with chronic economic tension and anxiety. Remove those shackles. Let people thrive, let people be happy, let people have time for their families. Watch this country turn around, including our economy. Our economy will thrive and be abundant, but it will no longer just be abundant for a tiny few, a 0.001% of Americans. It will no longer be abundant for the 1% who own more wealth than the bottom 90%, but it will be abundant across the board for anyone who wants to spread their wings and soar. That to me is what a politics of love means.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much, Marianne. And I know there are more questions here in the chat, people wanting more of your time, but I also know that you have other folks that are pressing for you to log on and you have another event to get to.
Thank you so much for letting me be part of what you're doing here tonight. I think people all over the country are joining in groups like this to give us the grounding that we need this week particularly. So thank you so much, and God bless you all, my new friends and my old friends.
Thank you so much for bringing your wisdom and your passion.
Thank you, Donna. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, so we're
Can we just take a collective breath together for a moment?
Thank you.
Taking another deep breath. Just taking in and letting those words, the vision that Marianne spoke to of the world that is possible through our vote, through our voice, through our actions. And I want to just take a moment before I hand it back over to you, Manuel, to give deep, deep thanks to Jen Johns for your incredible music and what you gifted us with today. And just wanted to turn it over to you, Jen, if you're still with us, to say a few words from your heart about, you know, how we be right now together in our bodies, in our spirits, knowing that we are in such times of chaos and uncertainty. We'd love to hear a few words of your wisdom as well.
Absolutely. Let me make sure my microphone's still plugged in. I think that every time I hear Marianne speak, I'm like, yes, sister, tell them. Just tell them. Because I think that it's so easy for us to look at the physical world and forget that we're sorcerers. So easy to look at the physical world and be like, that thing happened to us, as opposed to appreciate that there's a collective mind power that creates these things that happen in the physical world. And so when you have that appreciation, then you have this confidence that comes with knowing that you have agency. And so I'm excited, as Marianne said, that there are collections of people that are together, that are choosing this light, that are choosing this love, that are choosing to see with something greater than their eyeballs. And so right now I just am filled up and joy filled, because I know that we will be better on the other side of what this has been, and that we get the opportunity to write the story that's on the other side of Revelations, you know, for lack of a better way of saying it. So, yeah.
That's right. Thank you so much, Jen.
Absolutely.
All right, Manuel, I'm going to have you close us with some announcements. We're going to bring Austin back. And then again, for folks who want to stay for an extra half hour or for however long you would like to stay, we are going to have some time for breakout groups. And I know there were some questions that Marianne didn't get to, but maybe we can get to it. We've got a lot of collective wisdom here. And so if you want to continue having this conversation, if you've been stimulated or provoked and you want to dig in, please stay with us. When we officially close at 5:30, we'll continue for those folks who want to continue the conversation. So, Manuel.
Yes. So in a moment, Austin will be closing us out, and then, as Aria just said, if you want to stay another half hour, we're going to have small breakout groups. Really appreciate that we had Jennifer Johns, and I just heard her give her words of wisdom, and I think we ought to have her both as an artist and guest speaker at the same time. You are one wise and powerful woman. My goodness. So if you want to stay in touch with Marianne, and I encourage you, we're going to put in the chat how you can stay in touch with Marianne Williamson and the work that she is doing in the world. I also want to make a special request. She ran for president. There's so many intense decisions that have to be made in the midst of a campaign, a lot of them financial. And she ended up, as is not unusual, she ended up with some significant campaign debt. Please be a part of helping her retire that campaign debt. The information is in the chat again. At whatever amount you can give, we need a voice like this continuing in our national conversation. So also, if you have not voted, please vote. Have your friends and families vote. This is a time to show up and express who we are as a people. On Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, we are having a Thrive gathering called The Spiral of Resilience. And then on Sunday, the 15th of November, November 15, we're going to be getting together again, a Thrive gathering at 4 p.m., hopefully celebrating together and looking forward to a new chapter in our individual and collective lives. See if I've missed anything here. We're going to now hear from Austin Willacy, who is the co-artistic director of Thrive East Bay Choir. He's a veteran member of the House of Jacks performance group, with whom he has produced 10 full-length albums and completed multiple world tours. Did you know we had such a man in our midst? Austin Willacy. For the past 20 years, Austin has directed Till Dawn, which is an award-winning teen and a cappella group that empowers youth to find their voices in many ways. Folks, we're closing out with Austin Willacy.
Thank you so much, Manuel. And what an incredible Thrive this has been. I will be integrating what I have heard musically and otherwise for days and days. And I'm still buzzing from everything that Jennifer sang and everything that Marianne Williamson said. So thank you. I'm going to close with a song that's called We Are One Love. It is a song that I wrote with a dear friend, a woman named Patricia Bahia. We met at the Positive Music Awards in 2018, where we both won awards for songs that we had submitted. And the song was inspired by a Rumi quote. There's a Rumi quote that says, "They say there is a doorway from heart to heart, but what use are doors when there are no walls?" And so that is part of the meaning for me. The other meaning is that there's an activist, an author named Leticia Nieto, who says, "The truth is we are one. The reality is we are not." And so embracing the both and, the recognition of the fact that we are everything in the universe and we are each other, and yet the reality in terms of the way it plays out is not necessarily that.
Austin, let me interject here that just before you start singing, that
Sure.
Marianne has just launched a new podcast program, the Marianne Williamson podcast, and it can be subscribed to at Apple Podcasts or anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Also, Marianne is offering an upcoming weekend event called Women's Wisdom in Times of Crisis, and you can find out more at marianne.com. It's all in the chat. I just forgot to mention that. Thank you.
No, thank you. I'll be checking that out myself. So thank you, Manuel. All right. Feel free to sing along if you know this one, and if you don't know it, just stay muted and no one will know that you don't. Okay, goes like this. No walls between our hearts, and no walls between our souls. Where you begin and where I start, who I am and who you are. Oh, we are one. We are one. We are one. One love without an end. One love, no us or them. Though we seem different, one more same. Children of the light that never fade. Oh, we are one. We are one. We are one. One love. One love, one love, one love, one love, one love, one love.
Beautiful. Thank you.